I'm going to make $1 million game without writing a single line of code. Now, I know you're wondering, how am I going to do this? Well, I'm going to be making use of a platform named Rosebud. Now, this is an artificial intelligence platform which may throw some people off, and I am not advocating for the full use of AI. I'm going to dig into the code that it creates and show you how you can use this to boost your learning when you're starting to get into games, and how we can transfer these skills into an engine such as Unity for self-development purposes. Now let's go learn how to make games easy, baby! Here's the pitch. I'm going to use Rosebud AI to help me create a very popular Roblox game. Now, you may know this one. It's called Grow a Garden, and this has reportedly made hundreds of millions of dollars for the creator of this game, which is just nuts, even though Roblox do take a 70-30 split, but he's probably still got a lot of money. And you know who else likes money? This guy! That's why we're doing this one. So, Grow a Garden is basically what it says on the tin. You literally plant crops, and then they grow, and then you harvest them, and then you sell them, and then you can buy some better seeds, I guess, and then you grow those. And I guess on the servers you're on, there's like a leaderboard, so you can be the wealthiest plant grower in all of Roblox. But yeah, it's a really simple concept, so hopefully this tool should have no problem recreating it. So let's jump straight into Rosebud. Here we are on the Rosebud homepage. As you can see here, we've got some different templates that you can choose from, and there's a variety of games that people have already made and published. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a game from scratch, right? We want to make it completely from scratch to see how powerful this tool is. So I'm going to type in a prompt here. I'm going to ask it to give me a starting green plain area with a small brown patch that I can plant crops in. And then I'm going to tell it that we are going to be making a Grow a Garden game. Let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so after entering the prompt, the AI's gone, yep, we can make that. It's giving me a nice green plain with a bit of random grass bits and a nice little growing patch for us to use. Now, I didn't quite catch this on the recording, but it actually came up with a suggestion saying, oh, let's add a watering system for the game. So I just pressed that button and it just auto sent in the prompt for me. So it's thinking about what sort of game we're already making and what could be the next steps, which is actually quite useful in speeding up the development time. So as you can see here, we've currently got some seeds that I can plant on one of these patches, and then if I water that spot, it'll begin to grow. And then after a few iterations of the plant doing this really nice like bouncy animation, the plant will be grown and I can press on the same spot to harvest it. Nice. And as you can see here, it's come up with the next suggested step to add an actual physical watering can for the farmer. So let's press that and it'll auto send the prompt in. Let's see what we get. Okay, that watering can is definitely in his feet. That's not in his hand. Let's just do a little messing around and see if we can get it to put it in his hand. Now, after a couple failed iterations of asking Rosebud to sort this watering can placement out, that's a big Jesus. I decided to give up and do it myself. So I took a little delve into the back end because we have access to the code here, and I just decided, right, sack it. We're just going to figure out where it's placing the watering can currently, and we're just going to hard code it to be on his hand. And that's exactly what I did. I had a little play around where it was spawning the watering can. I just fixed the value so that it would actually be like on his hand, and now we're happy.
Well, what the hell, boy?
And then we come on to this next clip where I've added in a couple shopkeepers because you can buy and sell seeds. But as you can see here, I can go and buy seeds from this one guy, and then once I've harvested some of the grown crops, I can go over and sell it to the other guy. Very simple stuff. And this is when we ran into our first issue. So you can see the next suggested step that it made for us here was to add some sound effects, which I thought, yeah, right, go ahead. We want some cool sounds. Pressed it, and when it launched, we got this error. It's complaining that it's failed to load an MP3 file from this website that it's tried to access. But it actually comes with the option to just press fix it. So you don't have to copy and paste errors in. You just press please fix this, and it will use the actual error message that you've got to try and fix it. Now, unfortunately for me, this took me a while to understand because I just kept trying to press fix and it just wasn't working. And it's because my asset library only had a couple things in it. And you can actually go to the wider Rosebud library and start adding in random sounds and models for yourself, or you can upload them yourself, which we'll do later. So I went in and just added a bunch of sounds and a couple models. So you can see we've now got this random wizard selling us the crops and this much smaller witch person actually buying the crops from us. And you can hear all the nice sound effects that's added in for us. Very nice. Thanks, Rosebud. And now it's time to actually start progressing the game. So currently we'd only have one seed. So I asked it, let's add some more seeds into the game. And it added it in, and without me even asking it, it added a nice UI, or like a sort of inventory of seeds that we've got in the top corner there, which is absolutely nuts. But then, when I tried to plant the new crops, I ended up entering an infinite error loop, or so it says. So, you know, that's not really ideal. I asked it to fix it, but the website just kind of really lagged out and I had to refresh. But not to worry, because it actually saves every time you do a prompt. So there's an entire history of save points that you can roll back to. So I just rolled back to my previous prompt and I could then amend it to try and not cause the error again. But before we go in and add all of those really wacky plants, I asked Rosebud to clean up the scene a little bit. So I asked for each merchant to have their own stall, which we've got now. So we've got the guy you buy crops from is red because he takes your money, and then the witch that you sell your crops to is green because they give you money. Anyway, I messed around with it a bit more and wanted to add even more crops because there's a load of crops on the actual Grow a Garden game that get like really wacky and weird. So after messing around for like a good hour or so, you know, I was having loads of fun doing this, just adding random crops, seeing what it would come up with. You know, it got to the point where I had so many crops that I had to make multiple pages on my inventory. So Rosebud ended up coming up with these 4 weird crops. We've got Leviathan Bloom, Celestial Weave, Singularity Spire, and World Turtle Blossom. Yeah, I've not come up with any of these names. I've just asked it to create wacky, fun, colourful, inventive plants, and this is what it's come up with itself. I've given it no input. I've given it complete creative freedom, and it's done this all itself. As you can see, when I grow these, some of them look insane. I mean, some are a little bit small, but some of them are absolutely huge. But it wasn't enough. I wanted more. I gripped Rosebud by the scruff of their neck and I said, give me the biggest crop you can give me. You know, I had Rosebud at gunpoint by this point, and it was compliant. It went for the biggest tree it could. It gave me this sort of tree that has like nebula galaxy spiraling around it, or so it claimed. The textures didn't match the description, but it was a good effort. And then also a crystalline plant where each crystal was sort of moving, growing and shrinking in size, so it was all animated. It still looks good. I mean, they look a bit wacky, I know, but for a total AI with complete creative freedom, you know, it's done really well. And for the final crop, I wanted to test the custom objects. So we're going to be making our own crop. That's right, I've gone online, I've found a model and I've uploaded it into our assets, and now I'm going to ask it to turn it into a crop in game. Boom, there it is. It's the Skibbity Toilet. Yep, that's right, I am an epic memer guy. How do you do, fellow kids? Look at me, I am Skibbity. What am I actually doing, bro? Anyway, there you go. That's a Grow a Garden game. We ended up growing a Skibbity Toilet, so yeah. You got some brain rot off this video, don't worry. Last thing I did was just ask it to add some ambiance to the surroundings, you know, add a bit of scenery, which it gave us this very poorly built barn that will not be keeping much rain out, along with adding a couple of sheep around, which actually look alright. But yeah, overall, I am actually very impressed with this AI. It's done really well at building this game, albeit it is a simple game to make, but it's actually impressed me with how easy it is to implement new features. Okay, so I just wanted to talk a bit about how the code generated from Rosebud can actually help you start learning something like Unity. So here we are in our main.js. Obviously this whole thing is running the web, which is why we're dealing in JavaScript, but I still think we can learn a thing or two. So up here we've got just all of our variables that we're declaring. You know, we've got all the crop data and stuff like that. We don't really need to know a whole lot about that, it's just simple programming. But here's where we get into something interesting. So we've got this init method, which stands for initialization. This basically happens as soon as the scene is loaded up. So your scene is sort of like your world. As soon as it's loaded up, this initialization will be called, and all of these functions that we're calling will be done in there. Now, this is very similar to Unity when we've got something such as the start method, where the start method will be called as soon as the scene loads, and anything in the start method will be ran. But what I really want to show you is something like this, okay? So we've got an on mouse click, and what that means is that every time I click the mouse, this event will be called. So we've got a listener set up for our input device, so every time I click the mouse it'll run this, and what this is doing is calculating our mouse position, finding a raycast, and seeing if we've clicked on one of the crop patches. This is exactly what you can do in Unity as well, okay? So you can listen for an on mouse click event, and you can find out where the mouse has clicked using this thing called a raycast, which basically just kind of does what it says on the tin, alright? So it'll shoot a ray from the point that we've clicked, so from our mouse into the 3D world space, and figure out if we've hit anything. which is why we're trying to find intersections here. So we've got a raycast coming from our global camera that we're looking through and asking where our mouse is on the screen. And then we're seeing if it interacts with any objects, in this case, the soil patch that we can click on in the game. And if we look in Unity here as well, I've also got an on mouse down here, which this code is from the previous Pirate Software video, which if you didn't see that, it was nuts. Go watch it, it was hilarious. But I've got an on mouse down here, which will say if I've pressed on this object, it'll destroy it. Final thing I wanted to show you is this update method, okay? So we're in our Rosy controls here, which is just our player controller. We've got an update method, which is passing in delta time and the camera rotation. So you might be asking, what is delta time? Well, delta time is basically just the time given from the last frame to the next frame, okay? So your monitor will run at, say, 60 FPS, and in that 1 second, it'll generate 60 frames, all right? So this delta time is basically telling you the microseconds to where one frame generates the next. A lot of games will run off this because it means you can adapt the game to work under any frame rate. So if you were just trying to run it off real time and then you had, say, a really slow frame rate compared to a really fast frame rate, the movement would be completely different. So we can see here in our update method, we've got movement for all of the WASD keys, and basically what update does, update is called every frame, which is why having delta time is really useful in the update method, which is exactly the same to how Unity works. You know, we've got an update method here. If I wanted to call delta time, I could. I know we actually are calling delta time because we're moving our position according to the delta time. So it's nice and smooth, which is a very common practice in Unity. If you want to move its transform, then you can times whatever maths you're doing by delta time, and it should smooth it out. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a little overview as to why something like Rosebud might help you get a beginner understanding of utilizing a game engine like Unity. And I would like to thank Rosebud for actually reaching out and sponsoring this video. I've had a lot of fun messing around with your tool, it's very good. And I would like to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. As you can see, we have just hit 1,000 subscribers. Can you believe it, guys? We did it. Let's go. That's a round of applause for you guys. I absolutely love you. All your comments in the last video memeing on Pirate Software was absolutely hilarious. So thank you very much for that. It means a great deal. Don't forget to go and show the gaming channel some love, you know. We got Rat Killer over there. He's hilarious. Alright, but I'm going to love you and leave you guys. See you in the next one.